Welcome to episode 9 of So You Want to Podcast, strategies for growing your business, community, and influence. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that I get asked a lot about pretty regularly. You may have heard people talk about monetizing your podcast with sponsorships and ads. This is the question that I get asked more than any other question from people who are thinking about doing a podcast. Is it true you can get ads and sponsorship? Yes. Well, while it's true that ad dollars are flooding to podcasters from things like video and TV advertising and things like that, the vast majority of those ad dollars, all those millions you're hearing about, are going to major media outlets and networks who are making podcasts, the Gimlets of the world and things like that. There's also branded podcasts that major brands are creating. You're actually much better off sponsoring yourself by making sure that everything your listener, who is hopefully your ideal client, hears or sees or touches or feels in relationship to your podcast is leading them to becoming your client. You need to sponsor yourself. You need to talk about your services, offers, products that you have and promote them. I know self-promotion can suck, but you have to do it, and you can do it in strategic ways. Think about it this way. Can you share stories of clients you've helped with a certain product or service? Can you do a series of episodes about a certain topic or problem that you solve with one of your products or services? You probably have something like that. So give that some thought. Just because I get asked this question a lot, how do you monetize? How do you make money off of a podcast? Here is a quick list of ways you can monetize your podcast. Well, first of all, like I just said, your content in your podcast is hopefully leading you to recruiting clients. While you're talking about stuff, ask people, ask listeners, if you have any questions, contact me, reach out to me. Some of those people that contact you to ask questions, you might be able to help really quickly. You might be able to solve their problem really quickly. But they also might have something complicated where they need to hire you, and boom, there's a client. Courses, video courses, online courses are another way that you can monetize your podcast by promoting these courses on your podcast. These courses can be self-guided courses. They can be live courses. But because they have this authentic relationship with you and they trust you, they're going to be more willing to buy a course. Same thing with an ebook. If you have a topic that you want to go more in-depth in, you could sell an ebook, a 30-page, a 50-page, a 100-page ebook for a low price on your site, on Amazon or something like that, and promote it on your podcast. Do you have packages that you sell for your clients? For instance, with me, I have production packages, standard production packages for people that have podcasts. They range anywhere from $297 a month all the way up to $947 a month. And what that gives people is it gives them certain levels of editing for up to 4 episodes, up to 65 minutes in length. And they get different levels of editing, different amounts of production, different amounts of noise reduction and things like that. And I talk about that. And that's something that you could be promoting and using as a solution to problems that you talk about on your podcast. Are you a coach? Could you do some form of coaching that could be an extension of what you're talking about on your podcast? Maybe you could start a mastermind group. Maybe you could start a group coaching program where you are facilitating a group, helping people learn from you, but also learning from each other at the same time. Maybe you are a consultant. How could you share stories of your consulting successes and wins and case studies on your podcast that would lead people to hire you as a consultant? Perhaps you're an author and you've written books. You probably need to be mentioning those on your podcast because people will then buy them and get interested in going more in depth with you. As you start to build a community through your podcast, you could also start to think about live events, conferences, trainings where you could get groups of people together to go again further in depth into what you're talking about and what services you provide and ways you can help them with their problems. We talked about this a couple episodes ago, but if you are a public speaker and you are using your podcast as a platform for sharing your ability to speak, you could also talk about sharing your availability for speaking on your podcast. Perhaps you are visiting a certain area or you are going to speak at a certain conference. You might want to mention something like that on your podcast because it may lead to extra bookings or bookings that could be tagged on to trips that you're already making. These last two ways are a little bit different because they don't have to do necessarily with your products or services. The first would be affiliate relationships, affiliate promotions, affiliate links. This is basically a situation where you enter into an agreement with some other service provider or a certain product that you like, and you have a relationship or setup where you will get a commission off of sales of that product or service if people use the link or whatever that you have to connect them to that affiliate. A great simple way to do this is to set up an Amazon Associate account where you can include resources, products that you use on your website or mention them in your podcast and use a link that Amazon provides. And Amazon will actually give you a commission on that purchase if someone makes it using your link. And I believe this is still the case, but Amazon will also give you commission on anything that that person buys within 24 hours of clicking your link and buying something. It's in Amazon's best interest because you've driven traffic to their site. Now, the last way to monetize your podcast that I'm going to share is relatively simple, and it's something that we often think of, and that's asking for donations. That could be as simple as a PayPal donate button on your website. But I'm much more of a fan of creating essentially a fan club or a crowdfunding situation. And the most popular site for doing this is Patreon, Patreon. I'll include the link in the show notes. Patreon is a service, a website that allows you to create essentially a fan community where people can donate to your show on a monthly basis. I believe you can also do per episode or something like that. And then you can set up different giving levels, where at each different giving level, people would get a benefit or a reward of some type for the donation that they make on a monthly basis. It's also a way that you can create an exclusive area for certain fans or certain listeners of your podcast to give people more access and create that feeling of exclusivity. Many podcasters have seen great success creating a community on Patreon. So I highly recommend you check that out, especially if you have a podcast that's more of an entertainment-based show and you don't have maybe a lot of products or services that you can offer to potential clients. So thanks again for joining me today on the podcast, and I look forward to speaking with you again next week. One of the most frequent questions I get about marketing is, how do we know what type of marketing to invest in? There is so much out there. How do we compete with all the marketing noise? Well, you know my answer is going to be you need a podcast. Well, here's a story that shows exactly what I do. I've told you about Katie Kermitsos and her podcast, Biz Women Rock, before on an earlier episode. Katie's a business strategist and coach, and she happens to be one of my clients as well. She has reached thousands of women business owners all across the country through her podcast. Because of her podcast, Katie is always talking to warm leads who want to listen and learn about what she has to offer them. Well, so how did I help her? I met Katie in December 2016 when I approached her about advertising my services on her show. As we developed the ads, she and I had several great discussions about podcasting and her show in particular. I discovered that even after over 250 episodes and building a thriving community in business, she was still spending 3 to 4 hours per week editing, uploading, promoting, and analyzing her podcast. She was tired of it, frustrated, and almost to the point of ditching the show entirely. I immediately suggested she have us take over all of her show production and distribution. This simple step immediately allowed her to implement changes that tripled her revenue in 2017 because she was able to focus on much higher value activities that would grow her business. It gave her real results because she was focused on doing the work that had the power to skyrocket her income. The mere fact that I helped her think about about her podcast in a strategic manner added value. Much of what I do as a strategist is identify the gaps and call out the problems, and that is often enough. Most of the time, the people I work with are too close to their businesses to see how unproductive it is for them to keep doing this or that when they can have someone else do it for them. I also add value by helping them avoid the pitfalls, overcome the obstacles, and shorten the learning curve. I reveal examples of small things that can compromise their results. Most business owners know what they need. They just don't know how to get it. And more often than not, they are trying to do it all on their own. Believe it or not, most business owners don't even realize that a podcast can help them. And it takes a forward-thinking leader to take that first step. So if you're ready to take that first step, contact me today to schedule a free 15-minute strategy session. And let's get started crafting a podcast that will create customers who trust your business before they ever buy and then can't wait to tell the world about you. You can schedule a time with me by going to meetme.so/Danny Osmond. That's meetme.so/Danny Osmond, and I'll include the URL in the show notes.